call yourself a real speaker if all of your experience speaking is from behind a computer to an empty room for your podcast? I did. I declared myself to be a public speaker long before there was anything really public about it. I'd had my podcast for 2 years, and I sat by myself in an empty room and talked to my phone or my computer, and then I would publish this audio for people to listen to it. That's where I was when I joined Toastmasters. I was in a mastermind where I was being taught how to speak on stages and combine my love of speaking and storytelling in this epic format that would allow me to do both of these things that I loved. But one of the things that my mentor encouraged me to do was to own this identity of being a speaker, and that meant writing it in my bio. Carolee Garrison is a speaker. I got some pushback from this. I had some people tell me, you're not a speaker yet. You don't have experience in front of actual human beings. And I noticed that when I joined Toastmasters a year ago, that when I actually stood in front of a group of people, I shook like a leaf. I did this T-Rex arm thing, and then I backed up. And I tried to hide in the corner because my body language gave away the fact that when it came to physically being present in front of people, I was scared to death and I didn't want to be here. My comfort level was really sitting at my desk where people didn't have to see my body and they could just hear me. When I started Toastmasters, my podcast was called Seeking Sunshine. I have found that everything is intertwined. All the things that we do in our lives, you can't separate them. They're all part of us. You can't segment all the pieces of yourself into different categories because it's all part of you. So my podcast journey and my inner growth journey and my Toastmasters journey, it's all one and the same. It's all part of who I am. My Seeking Sunshine podcast started a couple of years, a year and a half-ish before I joined Toastmasters. My whole journey up until that point was really about needing to be seen, needing to be witnessed. My icebreaker speech, I went back and listened to it. It told the story of how much I'd been through in my life. It told the same story that my podcast told. I'm looking for the sunshine in all the hard things I've been through, and that was the story that I was telling over and over and over again. My life's been so hard. Look at how hard my life has been. Look at it. Please look at me. Please look at how hard my life has been. But the problem was that after getting through 2 or 3 speeches, I didn't have any more stories to tell about how hard my life was. I got to this point where I was like, wait, they heard that story already. I can't tell that one again. I need a new story. I need a new story to tell. And I had this realization that the essence of who I was wasn't the things that had happened to me. There was something deeper within me. And I had to figure out what that was. And because I was coming up here and talking to you guys and figuring out what stories to tell you, I had to figure out what the deeper meaning was. What did I really want to say? And it was as I pondered that, as I took courses and as I learned more about who I was, more about what I wanted to tell the world, And it turned out that what I really wanted to tell the world wasn't, look how hard my life has been. It was, you matter. It was, your authenticity is so valuable. It was show up real, show up messy. That's what the world needs. I rebranded my podcast. I started talking about doing the things that light you up. And when I started talking about doing the things that light you up, I got really lit up. You can tell, because I get so excited when I talk about the things that I love. I love podcasting. I love speaking to people. It's my favorite. It really is. I love talking about music. I love talking about authenticity. I love talking about showing up messy. I love talking about the ways in which we can talk about our flaws and how they unite us. Because we are all human beings who mess up and who do things imperfectly, and it's those imperfections that make us real. Doing what lights you up matters. Especially in this world where we're taught to do the things that make you money, that make you a cog in the wheel of other people's businesses, that make you be productive. But it turns out that what makes you the most productive is doing the thing that lights you up. When I really dug down and I figured out the things that made my story mine at its core, it changed my whole message. It changed what I talked about up here, and I stopped telling that same story about my life. And things started to change. I had to decide what message I was sharing. I wrote a speech. The first speech that I wrote that I really wrote every single word out, because let's be honest, the vast majority of the speeches that I write for Toastmasters are a vague outline, and they're very off the cuff. But the one speech that I wrote every word out for was for the competition that I ended up winning. And it was at that point where my brain finally clicked into place and said, wait a minute, I could do this for real? I could win speech competitions? That's something I'm capable of? I'm capable of standing up here saying something that matters, that makes a difference to people. And then winning, people choose me. I had a story that I told for a lot of my life, which was people don't choose you, Carolee. There's always some reason, whether it was how I looked, or I wasn't talented enough, or a lot of it was being overweight. And I told myself the story that I was not chosen. And then I was. I worked really hard on that speech, and I wrote every single word out, and I memorized the whole thing, and I practiced it so much. And then I came up here and I gave that speech, and it was the best speech I'd ever given. And I won that contest. And then I had stories that told me you only won it because the best speakers in the group didn't actually compete. And I had to go, wait a minute. Careful of the story that you're telling yourself. Be careful of the words that you say in your own mind, because they have so much power. You get to decide if you're a real speaker. If you go look it up, if you go look up what the actual definition is of what it means to be a speaker, it means a person who speaks. I already was that the whole time. All I had to do was give myself permission. Are you giving yourself permission to do the thing that you always wanted to do, that you always thought maybe someday I could be? What if you already are? So I rebranded my podcast. I started talking about doing what lights you up. And then I changed the name of my show from Seeking Sunshine, which really was all about everything I'd been through. It was about old Carolee. It was about the version of me I didn't want to be anymore. And it wasn't really about the name, it was about what it meant to me. And I changed the name of my show to Multi-Passionate Mama, and I started talking about how we are all diamonds. We're multifaceted human beings, and we all sparkle in so many different ways. This is just one of the ways that I sparkle. I also do so many other things that are so much fun, and I love doing all of it, and I get to be lit up in whatever way I want to be. I learned that being authentic is not just being authentic in the things that are wrong, in the things that kind of suck about life. It's also being authentically awesome, because we are all authentically powerful too. Let's not forget that. Finally, my podcast actually started taking off. I went from feeling like no one ever listened to it to all of a sudden people were going, the name of your show, your energy just drew me right in, and now it's borderline 10,000 downloads, and I'm like, I never thought it would get there. But I was transformed by being up here in Toastmasters and asking myself the question, what is the new story I need to tell myself? Because I can't keep telling the same story. It's time to be new. It's time to be different. I have seen so much transformation over this last year. It's been phenomenal. And even over the last few months, as I've become president, as I was literally just asked to teach at BYU, which was never something I ever dreamed of, I've been blown away with the direction that my life has gone. So the other question I have to ask is, what's next? What's next is the same dream that I always knew was there for me. I always pictured myself on these huge stages, but now it's so much more real. Now it's not just a dream. I know that it's in my future because I know that I'm a real speaker.